Hi, my name's Connor Uchida, and I play baseball. Well, first drew me to baseball. My dad always told me stories about how he and his dad like they had a landscaping company, and they would sit on the back of the truck and listen to Oakland A's games on the radio. So I thought that was always kind of cool, and I always a lot of my friends really like baseball, so I kind of just naturally got into it. Um, and you said who was I when I first started? Oh shoot, I was probably 5 or 4. My first sport was actually tennis because my parents were tennis tennis is a sport where you can kind of play at any time, anywhere, and you don't need 18 people to play. But I mean, every kid I think, or most kids end up playing little league or something. So yeah. What caused me to? I hated tennis. So I mean, I always my two favorite sports have always been baseball and football. But baseball, I felt like it was a lot more fun to me. Like I really like hitting. Like that's really rewarding to me when I do well. So I just stuck with it. Yeah, that's probably the main reason. I mean, probably until I was even maybe until I was 13 or 14. Like baseball was always just kind of like a place for me to socialize. I mean, all my best friends that you probably know, I met them through baseball. Um, and I think that baseball is really a sport where it's individual. Like people see it as individual, but you actually rely a lot on chaining certain plays together as a team. So I think it really taught me to work with really work well with others, communicate well, and then also I think I started to take more of a role as a leader. Um, and so when you start batting in the top of the lineup and stuff, there's kind of a certain expectation, and you have to set a good example. So yeah, I think it's really taught me to do that. Yeah, well, I think a lot of people say this, like little league and stuff is you kind of grow up and you're the top player, you're the top dog, and I remember I was 10 and I was playing with a bunch of 12-year-olds in little league, and I had the top 5 batting average in the league. But then when you go to travel ball, when I joined my first really high level travel ball organization, it's all the best all the best little league players are playing in the same field, so you become you become the average player. And so I think that was kind of a spot where it wasn't easy anymore. Like it wasn't a breeze. And so I'd come home from tournaments and have 2 hits or 1 hit out of 20 at bats, and it'd be you really have to think about what you're doing, and if you really want to continue doing this, because it's a huge time commitment, and so you have to really decide am I putting in enough effort and stuff for these tournaments to be worth it. Um, I think that's when it started becoming more competitive and in some ways more rewarding too, because your performance is actually a big deal. It's not just pizza parties and stuff anymore. This is more niche to baseball. I mean, I've never been a power hitter. I there's you'll kind of learn there's contact hitters and power hitters, and I lean really far on the contact hitting side. So I just rarely hit the ball out of the park. I think that's always a big insecurity because I don't know, it's like saying you can't dunk in basketball, or you don't dunk in game. I don't know. I think it's kind of something you always want to do, but you have to stick within what where you're most productive. So that's an insecurity for me. And I also think there's insecurity when you're underperforming for the team, and but you're in a situation where you need to perform, and it's just it's the most sinking feeling when you feel like you can't do it. So I think it's a combination of being a grinder, liking baseball, and also just being competitive. Like for me, I always feel like if you trust the process, it's gonna work out. If you put in more effort, not just time, but in the time that you're practicing, you have a lot of intention when you work out, or when you practice, and then also when you're competitive in game. I think for baseball, especially if you're thinking about your mechanics and stuff too much, you actually start underperforming. But what really matters is all you have to care about is just beating the pitcher. And so I think it's that kind of mindset where even if I'm doing bad, I learn to adjust and still have a pretty productive appearance. Um, yeah, and also just like loving the sport. I mean, like it's hard to like for me. It doesn't matter if I do bad because I love going back to the cage and just hitting anyways. So I mean, I think the biggest one that most people would say is the time commitment. Like I think that also though, like I'm sure many people have talked about the time commitment, but also it's like the kind of energy you show up to like everything else with. Like I was talking with one of my friends, and he's a swimmer at Stanford, and then I was talking to like one of his like one of my family friends who's roommates with him, and they were like, yeah, he's like just basically chilling all day, and I'm like, it makes sense because like you spend so much energy like in your sport that like every single other hour is like basically recovery. So I think it's like hard to maintain a balance because like when I return from games and stuff, it's like hard to get work done. So I think on one end it really like improves your work ethic because you know you have to get it done. But that definitely is like a sacrifice. Is like knowing that you're probably not going to perform at like your peak. Um, yeah. Well, I've torn my ACL freshman year, and I was like that was crazy because I transferred to Menlo, and then also I like I think sports is a big, as I said, like it's a big way of meeting people, and so I tore it like that's the summer going into freshman year, so I was out like the entire year, and that was a big learning moment because one, it's like learning to kind of like get through everything when you don't have something that's so central to your free time or like things you enjoy. But also it taught me to work really hard because you start at a disadvantage. Like I mean, one of the other things I pride myself on is like my speed, and so coming back from like not being able to move your leg for 2 months, it's kind of like you slow down a lot. So it taught me like I started going early mornings, like 3 days of the week before school, like sprinting and stuff. And then I think once you keep that with you like after you're injured, you you start like taking off beyond everybody else. I think so. I think like I think there's like two different sides to that. Like one is just like one is within the game, like kind of what do you define as success in terms of like how many hits do you want to get, or like what do you define like a successful game? Um, I think that's like as you get to higher levels, you're like, oh, I hit three balls hard and like all three of them got caught, but you know what, I did a good job. Like that's definitely how success has changed for me because I used to just like hate it every time if I didn't get a hit in a game, but now like it's higher level, so you can't really think that way. But I think also like I had a whole recruiting situation like where I ended up not really getting any offers from the schools I wanted at the beginning of senior year, or like at the end of the beginning of senior year, like when I started doing college apps. So I started like really thinking back about what did I consider like a success in terms of playing baseball and stuff. And I was just saying like I don't know, my dad was like you should be grateful that you loved a sport so much that like you want to hold on to it so bad. So well, I played outfield like all my competitive life until like sophomore year when I came back from an injury because I like didn't really think I had like the range anymore to play outfield. I mean, I still did, but I thought like I always kind of felt like I wanted to play infield because honestly, outfield's really boring to me. I think like as shortstop, you assume more of the role of like a leader. Um, like you kind of direct all the infield, you call all of the plays and like the defensive setups. But I think that outfield for me, like honestly, for me for outfield, I think you have to be more athletic. Like you just have to rely on your instincts more. I think they're like two completely different positions because one, you're kind of expected to like make every single play, and like it really sticks out if you don't make a play at shortstop. Whereas outfield, you kind of just sprint to every ball, and like if you get there, you get there, and if you don't, you don't. So there's different levels of accountability. I think like the summer before my junior year was like when I had everything ironed out, like coming back from injury. And I think like I struggled a lot going into sophomore year that summer because I hadn't really seen live pitching in a long time. But the summer before my junior year, it was like I felt like I'd worked really hard at that point, and it all kind of worked out. And that's when I really like started just trusting the process and like really grinding everything out. Like I that's when I started like summer before junior year was when I started consider like really highly considering recruiting. Um, and so I was going to like showcases and stuff. And I feel like coming from a school where we don't play the best teams, like that summer when I was facing like top level arms, that I was like, I'm like, I've gotten to a point where like I can just trust myself and everything. So yeah, yeah. I think that discipline is probably like more important honestly than grinding to me. Like I think when you're in the cage or whenever you're practicing for baseball, like people people say like if you oftentimes if you go to the cage without any intention and you just swing, you'll probably make your swing worse. So because like when you start getting tired and stuff, your mechanics start falling apart, and then you just make bad habits. So you really need. I think I've learned to kind of like self direct and not only like self direct, but also like stick with an approach. Like it's really easy in the moment just to get carried away and start swinging like for the fence, but you have to learn not to do that. Yeah, I think I don't know. A lot of the competitive stuff I do happens over the summer. So yeah, like I'd say this summer, like last summer, like the summer before my senior year, was like I started to really feel a lot of confidence because I had reached like a physical level where I could kind of like perform among or like above everyone. Like my play style could really like show. Um, I think like confidence wise though, like overall, I think I've always kind of like trusted myself in being like a pretty strong player. So I've just kind of been grateful or like blessed like to not have to worry as much about that. Yeah. I like for my year for my club team, like we were the strongest like year in like our grad year was like the strongest year that CCB my club team has seen in like probably 10 years or like yeah, like 10 years. Um like I mean not only are like the teams competitive, like my team had like we have 7 D1 commits now, but I also think you get a lot of value from like the coaching of a good organization or a competitive organization. Like I always say, we call his name's Rach. Like we just call him Rach. He is really good because he just keeps it a buck with you. It's like when you're on that competitive of a team, if you make one mistake, it's like you're done. So you really get held to a certain level, but you come out of it feeling like you're like not that smart, and you realize that you were just held to such a high level that everything like whenever you go to another league, it feels like super easy for you. I think that's like the biggest thing is like you kind of always debate like small fish, wait, big fish in a small pond versus small fish in a big pond. And like I would rather choose being like a small fish in a big pond because when you get brought to like the average level, like inevitably, like whether you make it to the majors or like you make it to like whatever division you end up in, it feels like you have an advantage against everybody else on the playing field. Yeah. Okay. So I had my organization, like we have a really direct pipeline to a lot of D1 schools in the like California, but none of them are academic, and so that's like a really big deal for me and my family. Also, like I was running like a really narrow path. I knew I didn't want to go to liberal arts college, um, and I wanted to go like a big research school. So all those schools either fall into like the top 10 of D3 or like they're D1. So I passed up on like a few offers. Um, but I always trusted, like I think that's the great thing about Crystal too, is like you can trust your academics because you're at a top academic institution. Like you shouldn't worry about. I mean, if you're going to D3, you're probably not going to go pro anyway. So you should probably be worrying about academics in the first place. So I've always just thought about it like I'm at a really great school, so I should leverage that. I'm not at a good I'm not at like the strongest athletic school, so why don't I leverage the academics and then figure it out from there. So I was kind of looking a lot. I mean, I was giving heavy preference to the D3 schools, the schools that I talked to, and like in the schools I talked to in terms of the admissions process. But I stuck with like my same original like list of schools, and then like Lord knows how, but I got in Dartmouth, and then they had been like recruiting me really heavily. So I think it's just proof that if you really like try hard in everything and you try and stay balanced, it'll work out to your favor. Yeah, I was joking. The most like life changing thing for me has been having a whiteboard in my room because I literally make like an hour by hour schedule. Um, I think like it's not like I have very different work ethic, but you need to bring direction to it because like when I get home from something, like if I get home at 8 p.m., I'm thinking about how I need to do four different things. So instead of getting to doing those four different things one at a time without a schedule, like when I don't have a schedule, I like just like do nothing basically. But with the schedule, like I can just plan it out, and it makes me just stick to it. Yeah. I don't know. I keep saying this word, but I really do think like baseball is a sport where you're like literally playing in dirt. Like it doesn't matter if it's raining or if it's dusty or whatever. Like you get so it's just such a grinder sport because it's a sport where you have to spend hours like doing taking 100 ground balls or taking 100 like hitting reps, and then all of that just to like turn completely red. And whenever I shower, it's like orange. It's just orange everywhere. Like I don't know. I think there's a certain like vibe to baseball where you're forced to like work really hard, um, and then also be able to come home and like get everything done. So I think for me, I always say like when I'm in season, I end up doing like I end up being the most efficient because I feel like I'm forced to like really get something done, and I think that's kind of an advantage that I have over people that may not take like athletics as seriously because like like you need to get it done, you need to be on time, um, and like when something happens, you don't make an excuse and you go with it. So I mean, I think that's like true for a lot of athletes, but I think it's really true that that's like what you really take with you in the future.